Welcome to Uniquely Female Troubles. My name is Leslie Wells. Today we are going to talk about the B word. I'm calling it the B word because I don't think YouTube is okay with that word. So I'm just going to use that euphemism for it. But I want to talk about this word today. It's very interesting to me, the evolution of the word. I mean, for a long time, it was one of a very bad insult for women, but now women are rehabilitating that word and claiming it with pride. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the word and just ask you a few questions about how you feel about the word. So in ancient Greek literature, there was a connection made between women and dogs. And that was used to reinforce our subordinate position and inferior nature. We were more like dogs than we were like humans. But the earliest use of the actual B word that they can find to insult women is from the 15th century. And it actually was referring to sexual desire. And to call a woman the B word is saying that that woman is like a dog in heat. And one really interesting aside is that back in the Middle Ages, people actually worried about women's sexual desires and urges hurting their husbands because women had so much more sexual desire than men did, and then we could actually make them sick. They tried to as they tried to satisfy us, which is so hilarious considering that it's the exact opposite today. In today's culture, it's believed, and based on my experience is true, that men have more, in general, have more sexual desire, and that sometimes it hurts women to satisfy their husbands' desires, as far as quantity, as far as, how frequently it happens, as far as what they want to do. But back in the Middle Ages, it was just the other way around. People considered women the ones that were so insatiable when it came to sex that we could actually maybe even make our husbands sick. So I think that's pretty funny. But so when you call a woman the B word, you're calling her belligerent, unreasonable, malicious, controlling, aggressive, and dominant. What's interesting to me is, especially the last three of those words, controlling, aggressive, and dominant, are all considered more male qualities. But when a woman is that way, it's calling a woman the B word is calling her those things, as well as other things that nobody likes. Calling a man the B word is calling him subordinate, weak, and cowardly. And those things are associated with women. So, I don't know, I find that whole thing really incredibly interesting. Another way that people use the B word is just to talk about something that's difficult, like life is a B, or final exams are a B, or work is a B, So, being called the B word for women has been linked with a worsening of mental health. It is not good for women to be called the B word. And there was a study done in 2020 called The Sexist Slurs Reinforcing Feminine Stereotypes. And according to this study, the B word is used hundreds of thousands of times a day on social media platforms and is associated with sexist harassment, victimizing targets, shaming victims who do not abide by degrading notions about femininity. And yeah, I totally agree with that. I do believe that is true. And I have a little story about not just the B word, but one day I was walking to my therapist's office, and I was walking down the hallway, and in the office next to his, at that time, there was a little barber shop, which is kind of weird because it was in an office building, but whatever. And the guy had the radio on, and he had the music very loud. And right when I walked past the door, the music said, F that bitch. Oh, sorry, I said it. Oh, well. Anyway, it made me so angry. It's like, that's your entertainment? So I went in there, and I told the guy, I said, you know, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a psychologist next door to you. And a lot of women who see psychologists, myself included, have been R worded. And we don't really need to hear that phrase, F that B, as we're walking into our psychologist's office. And you know, he was so apologetic. And I really appreciated his attitude. And he said he apologized to me, and he said he was going to apologize to my therapist too. But that brings up another problematic point. So this was a good guy. And yet, until I pointed it out to him, he thought it was totally acceptable, no problem, to listen to a song with that word in it, that phrase in it. And that is weird. I'm just going to say it's weird. And it's just so wrong. So I started researching this word in music. And Jay-Z has the B word in 50.2% of his songs. So over half his songs have that word in it. Isn't that interesting? And the top 3 categories of music that have the B word repeated. So this website I looked at, it gave all different genres of music. And one part of it, it listed the top 3 swear words that are used most often in these different genres of music. So the genre of music that has the B word in the top 3 of the swear words they use are electronic, pop, and rock, which really surprised me because I personally thought hip hop would have that word the most, because I know they use it all the time. But as it turns out, hip hop uses so many iterations of the word, of the N word, that the B word didn't make it to the list. So take of that what you will. And so there was an article that was published in 2013 in I don't know if it's a website or a publication, but it's called Roll/Reboot, which I think is a great name and a great idea. The author is Emily Heist Moss, and it was published in 2013. So she was in a big city, and she was crossing the street at the intersection, and she crossed paths with a man that she'd never seen before, didn't know, and he just looked at her and said, F-U-B. So this is what she said about it. I take the B word more seriously than other insults because it attempts to use a piece of my identity, my femaleness, as a weapon, and consequently feels more personal. And then later in the article, she said, when you insult someone, your goal is to hurt, shame, undermine, or humiliate. Your goal is destruction in some small form of self-esteem or ego. And again, the article is called What You're Really Saying When You Call Me a B. And the author is Emily Heist Moss. And it's really interesting to think about, because I don't think most people don't take the time to figure out really what their motivations are when they use any type of insult. But unfortunately, insults are such a huge part of unhealthy relationships. And she said that what you're trying to do is hurt the person, shame the person, undermine the person, or humiliate the person. The goal is destruction in some small form of self-esteem or ego. And it would be very interesting to just stop somebody as soon as they insult you, me, whoever. As soon as a person just stops them, is this what you're trying to do? Are you trying to hurt me? Are you trying to undermine me? Are you trying to destroy part of my self-esteem? They might say yes, they might say no. The sad thing about that is that often people aren't even all that clear themselves about why they're doing what they're doing. They're not all that clear themselves about their own motivations. So I do know that the B word continues to be used quite frequently as an insult. But now we're going to talk about the other side of the B word. Women have actually embraced the B word. And now I don't personally, but I know a lot of women, we call ourselves the B word with pride. And there in 1996, there was a website called Heartless Bee International, which was started pretty much as a joke. There's also a magazine called Bee. It was started in 2011, and it says that it's a feminist response to this culture. And also, people have used BITCH as an acronym, meaning being in total control, honey. Beautiful, intelligent, talented, creative, honest. And the third one I wrote down is babe in total control of herself. And I love that. I absolutely love that. In 1968, Joy Freeman wrote and released something called the Bee Manifesto. And two lines I wrote down from this are, a bee takes SHIT from no one. No one. And this one's really interesting. More often, they, meaning BITCHES, are accused of domineering when doing what would be considered natural by a man. And that is so true. If women who are assertive and who are ambitious are often called this word. But if a man did the exact same thing, no one would think twice about it. They would even admire him for it. And that's pretty interesting to me. So the most important thing, in my opinion, is the intent and the context. Is a person trying to hurt you when they call you this word? If you call yourself that word, you're complimenting yourself. And how does it feel different if like, it feels really different if a man is calling you that to put you down, and maybe even women call each other that as insults. But it's to the point now where women are calling themselves and each other that as a compliment. And I think that's pretty cool. And another question I have is, how do you feel about being called the B word in an intimate relationship? Is it okay for your husband or boyfriend to call you that word? I know people that's just part of their normal conversation. They don't think twice about using that word. And then I know people that never use that word. And if a person who almost never uses that word would call you that word, that would, to me, mean that they are trying very hard to hurt you. And I'm going to put a community post up with a poll to find out how you guys feel about being called the B word. I have been called the B word way more than once, but only in the context of an intimate relationship. I have never been called that casually. And so I think it's very interesting. And I also think it's very interesting that oppressed groups can take a word that was used by the oppressor and then rehabilitate it and actually turn it into something good. Like in 1990, a group called Queer Nation started. And in my own personal experience, that was the first time that the word queer was embraced by the queer community. And now it's okay to call them the queer community. And I think that's really neat, because when I was growing up, that was a huge insult. If you said somebody was queer, you were really insulting them. And now that's even, people call themselves queer. Another one is the N-word. And I know it's not okay for me as a white person to call a black person the N-word. And I don't have a problem with that. That's fine. But black people call each other the N-word. And I think that's fine too. I think it's really cool. And so when people try to use words against you and against a whole group of people, like for instance, half the population, then we can take that word and we can rehabilitate it and we can embrace it and we can use it for our power. So I bet there's a lot of strong bees out there watching me right now, and I see you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And please give this video a like, and I would absolutely love a comment. I really want to know what you guys think about this. I know what I think about it, but I don't know what y'all think about it. So thank you very much. Bye.